What is up, my deranged little unicorns? Go pour yourself a cup of fuck yeah and chase it down with 2 shots of I don't give a damn, because you are listening to Unhinged Inc. I'm your host, Jara Ashwell. Let's get into the episode. Trigger warning. This episode discusses topics that may be alarming and distressing to some, such as domestic violence, assault, substance abuse, bullying, and much more. If you feel this may trigger you, please skip this episode. If you do, however, listen and it raises some concerns or feelings for you, please see the show notes for resources and places which you can contact for help. As distressing as some of these topics are, I feel that it's very important for them to be raised, and this is a part of this beautiful woman's story. All right, well, welcome back, guys, to, I think this is episode 3 of Unhinged Inc., and we have a very special guest with us here today. We have Daisy Lamb, who a lot of you will know of Farmer Wants a Wife, but there is a lot more to this woman than just Farmer Wants a Wife. So we're going to dive into a bit of that later, but first of all, welcome, Daisy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been in the Ville.
Yes.
Yeah, back home.
So good. It's so warm here.
It's been warm. It's been cool and then warm. It's hard to pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's freezing at nighttime, but like we were leaving the boxing last night and it was like 16 degrees out at Alligator Creek. I text Todd and he's like, is it warm there? I'm just like, oh, it's like 16 degrees. It's like, it's 7 degrees and windy here, which is... Ooh.
So you're on the farm now, so northern New South Wales.
Yes.
So what's it near?
So we're like 6.5 hours from Brizzy.
Yep.
And like 7 hours from Sydney.
Okay, so sort of in and down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're like 2.5 hours from, if anyone knows, the Tamworth Country Music Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about
Nice.
2.5 hours from Tamworth.
So you'll be hitting that up next year?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so good. Alrighty, and it's a cattle farm.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know about you is you actually grew up on a farm.
Correct, yes.
But is it stock horses?
Well, I was
Racing.
raised riding horses.
Yep,
So I was born in Darwin.
Yep.
So I think I'm just genetically built for the humidity.
And
I
the
don't
outdoors.
know. Yeah.
Yep.
Born in Darwin, and then my parents are both in healthcare.
Yep.
So we moved around a lot. So my mum managed, hospitals and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and
right.
she is now a nurse practitioner. She's done so amazing. She's been nursing since she was like 17 years old. And she started her nurse practitioner studies when she was, I think, like in her 50s.
So after you guys had left home?
Yeah.
Yep.
So she was just, after this new adventure. So she's done really well with her life. But with her nursing, we did move around a lot. So I was born in Darwin. My brother was born in Nambour in Queensland.
Wow.
And yeah, we sort of just shuffled around hospital to hospital wherever there was a nursing contract for her. Probably listen to this podcast and be like, that's not right. Sorry, Mum.
That's your recollection.
It's as much as I know. We lived in Broken Hill for a few years.
Yep.
She was managing a hospital there. And then we moved to Wentworth in New South Wales. I think I was like 4, maybe, like going on 5.
So that's a lot of moving around before your formative years.
Yeah. So we moved to Wentworth and we moved to the farm in Curlwa, which is like 5 minutes from Wentworth. And I must have been like 7 or 8, I think, at the time. We lived in a house in Wentworth that was directly across from my primary school, which was awesome. But then, yeah, exactly. It's just like getting us up in the mornings. But I have an older brother as well. So yeah, he was obviously there. And
so you're the youngest?
I am, yeah.
How much older?
He turned 30 last year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm 28.
So 2 years.
Yeah. So we did school in Wentworth, lived in Curlwa, and we had, at one point, I think we had like 8 dogs, 24 horses, a couple of sheep. I think there was a carpet python there at some stage.
I love this.
Yeah. So definitely not a city girl by any means.
Yep.
I was definitely raised in a very independent mindset, I guess. My mum's very, very driven and very independent. And, my dad's exactly the same. He's a very hard worker. Grew up on a farm in Deniliquin.
Yep.
So mum and dad are both from Denny originally. And, so we've still got family in Deniliquin and the family property in Deniliquin as well. The Lamb family, we have Wooloora Station as well, which is... I'm going to take a stab. It's for like 125,000 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, so huge farm.
Yep.
Having older parents as well, mum decided to focus on, work and studies. And I know that she did have a little bit of trouble with infertility at the time, them a few years to conceive. So when they had me, my dad was actually 41. So
wow.
He's just about, no, was he 41? I don't know. He's 70. So maybe he was 43.
I can't math.
41
Close.
with my brother
Yep.
and 43 with me.
Wow.
So, yeah, so they were quite older. Like, my mum's in her 60s now. My dad's 70. So I think they wanted us to be really independent in kids and not have to sort of have us rely on them too much. Like, they'll always be there, and they love helping us out, of course. But yeah, they raised us to be very, very independent. My brother's an accountant and he lives in Whyalla. As soon as he could get out of home and move, he did. So he moved to Adelaide as soon as he finished year 12. And yeah, lived in Adelaide for a few years, built his own life, and he's so successful. Like, I always said he'd be a millionaire by the time he's 30. And I think he's like... And I think he's over $1 million in debt with investment properties and stuff. But,
That's right.
assets are assets.
That'll all catch up. So you instilled that old school values and that really hard working ethic right from a young age.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I was really lucky because, we were provided with everything, but we weren't given a lot. We had to work for what we got.
Yeah.
So we started off with the basics of everything. We didn't have the best car and horse float or the best horse track when we went to events, but we still went there. We were still really, really successful.
Yep.
And then just as we sort of progressed on, we got into it more and decided to invest more into it. And I remember when I was in my teens and my mum said to me, because the school was doing like trips to Italy and my brother had gone to Italy, and she's like, right, well, you can either get a horse truck or you can go to Italy. And I was like, horse truck. 100%. Yeah. So I think my brother and I had sort of different paths, but we're equally as hard workers as each other. Yeah.
And so high school, did you do high school down there as
well?
well?
I did, yeah. When I was in year 5, my school actually closed down. It was, I think at the end of it, there was like 30 students in this whole school. And yeah, so I don't know what happened. It was something to do with funding or something. Yeah. I was too young and I never really followed up about it.
It's like, sweet, school's closed.
Yeah, right. Yep. So, but then we had to go into Mildura. For schooling. So that was the next closest
How far would
school.
that be?
So from Wentworth on the bus, it was a good hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'd get picked up right outside our front gate.
Yep.
And yeah, we'd get on and, you got used to studying, sleeping, doing everything life that you could on the bus.
Yeah.
Because then you get to school and then again on the way home. So we'd get on the bus from home, I think it was like 7:30 or 7:45 or something.
Yeah.
We'd get in there just at 9 o'clock. And then on the way home, we'd get home at like 4:30. I'd jump off. Go jump on a couple of horses, ride them.
Yeah.
Daylight savings was a bitch.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's like you got to almost ride in the dark, really, or like pick and choose what you're going to do.
There's no lights out there.
There's no,
it's just moonlight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you sort of adapt to that, and it gets I suppose again, you take lessons from early on, and you just take them into later in life, like now I've got like a 15-minute drive to town, which is fine. When we were like filming and stuff, it was like 25-minute drive to town. So there's 2 different farms at home now. We've got Todd's parents' farm, which is their farm, which is where we did filming. Yeah. So we actually have our own place now, which is a bit closer to town. So it's 40 acres that we've got. Yeah, so it's enough for us, a little bit of playground, and yeah, we've got like 5 horses, 7 dogs.
And all the dogs.
2 cats.
So you got puppies?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, I've got a sausage and a cocker spaniel there.
Because you've got yours.
Yes.
And then was there a puppy that was scared of the thunder the other night and had to come
God.
Inside?
Todd, if you're listening to this, the dog's still not allowed inside.
Todd, I was on your side. I'm like, bring the dog in, Daisy.
She's so cute. But I mean, it's this thing that I think it's just like growing up in that old school mentality.
Yep.
Animals are outside.
You're one or the other. My husband's an outside animal person, and I'm like, all five are in our bed.
Yeah. I think it's very selective. Like I don't have a problem with it. I'm just like, because we've got wooden floors at our place, so I'm just like, I'll just put Roger the vacuum on in the morning and just slip around. But I think it was raining, it was wet, and I'm like, you're not going to mop the floors.
No, this is going to be on me. Yeah.
You know, which is fine again. But I was like, she's got her bed outside.
Yeah.
She's got this horse rug, which is like 600, they call it denier, but so the thickness, right? Warm as shit. It keeps like a horse warm in winter. So this pup's got this little box with this rug, and I'm like, she's fine. She's out of the elements. She's happy. And then we walk outside, and she's happy in there. She's just like, yeah, this is great. But we do have, I'm very lenient. We do have an older dog, Summer. Yeah. So when it was really cold, we had like a cold snap, and Todd was like, oh, you know, Summer's outside. And I'm just like, just let her in. Just for one night.
She'll be right.
Well, she's now progressed to sleeping near the couch. Todd bought her a new dog bed. When she's been good, she's allowed in, but she's in the bad books at the moment because she attacked Todd's good cattle dog right before I left.
Oh, great.
So now Todd's probably like, you know, feet up on the couch inside, and his dog is on Summer's bed with like 5 drains in her. Poor thing, she just got absolutely stretched, but like it was so traumatic. I was like, oh god, I didn't think it was
dog fights are scary.
Yeah. Do yours fight?
Yeah, well, that's how I nearly lost my thumb. My Staffy and my Shepherd tried to eat each other.
Yeah, that's
and they got me instead.
Yeah, oh god.
Yeah, blood everywhere. Anyway, sorry, I love animals.
No, that's all right.
Like, animals. So high school.
Yeah.
What was high school like for you? Were you a school kid, or you just wanted to get out into the world?
I mean, I was a school kid. I remember being my first day at I went to a school called Trinity Lutheran College in Mildura.
Yep.
And it was prep to year 10, and to me, I was just like, wow, like this
Where'd all these people come
next
from?
level. And I was so overwhelmed. I remember my first day, and they get everyone out in assembly, and I was so overwhelmed that I was like on the verge of crying. And my teacher came along and was like, oh, hey, Daisy, like, this is, I can't even remember the girl's name, but she's like, I'd seen her once before when our schools did, like, inter-school sport. Yeah. And then we just kind of, like, gelled together. But this teacher was just like, oh, do you know this girl? And I was like, yeah, I do. And this girl was like, I have no idea who you are. I'm like,
I love this. Be my friend.
Yeah, so we kind of just gelled together. Yeah. And then in school, I was quite a beefy kid.
Yeah.
You know, so I always used to, my brother will laugh at this, but like he used to sort of like gently bully me about my weight.
Oh, good old brothers.
Yeah, love him. But, you know, it wasn't just him. It was like my friends, brothers and stuff, they would say the same thing. So for me, it wasn't until later on in life that I was kind of like, well, shit, like maybe there's a bit of trauma there from that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I do, for myself, especially when I got into the fitness industry, you know, because I was a bigger kid, and at the time, and you always tell kids this, it's just puppy fat.
Yes.
You know, I was like 13, 14 years old. I was so insecure about my weight. There was girls that were just stick skinny, or I had a friend who had these massive tits.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, I don't know how she got through school because her back would have been killing her, but beautiful girl.
Yeah.
And all the boys are obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And she's stunning. And I always sort of was like, oh my God, I want to be like her. Because, you know, she gets all this attention. And I thought, you know, you see it in the movies and it's like, that's the most important thing. Unbeknownst to me, I was just like, look like a dickhead probably. But yeah, I took that to heart a lot, and it wasn't until I was like 15 or 16 and my parents divorced, or they separated. And yeah, that sort of took a bit of a toll on me, and that's when I don't know what happened. It was like stress hormones or some shit like that. I don't know how it all works when you're that age, but yeah, we ended up moving out to a different little farm. So it was about 15 minutes from Wentworth, out the other side towards Broken Hill, in a small suburb called Pomona. And so that was where I moved out there with Dad.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, my mum and I had a little bit of a rocky relationship relationships throughout that separation.
It's hard at that age, women and
it
young girls,
is.
and
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we were sort of butting heads a lot. I think we share a lot of similarities, as much
Yes.
as we hate to admit it. But yeah, we're very, very similar in our mindset and how driven we are. And I think, even though I didn't realize it at the time, I can sort of look at us now and be like, I sort of have a lot. I owe her a lot, because of my success in life, because she is the one that has instilled that in me, And so I went out and, went out to Dad's farm. And we were out there. I was 15, I think. Yeah, we both had to sort of learn to live and stand on our own 2 feet.
Yeah.
So
the
yeah, we went
dynamics have all
from
changed.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And I didn't get cut off from Mum at all, but it sort of felt like that. And she had a job opportunity to work in Kerrang in Victoria, so which is about 4 hours away. So she was sort of going between home and Kerrang for a little while. And then so sort of like separated ourselves. Like there was like a period of a couple of months that, months of time that I wouldn't talk to Mum at all, and the only interaction that I would have with her was if, we agreed that she would take me to a horse event. But then, we'd spend that time together, we'd argue, and then I'd just be like, nah, fuck this. Like, and then, just go back to that. And it was probably me as a kid as well. I was just like, well, there's this breakdown of a relationship. I didn't understand it at the time. And having gone through it myself now, I completely understand it now, and I was just like, oh, God. I mean, if I have a kid and not like, Todd, I'm not going to divorce you. But
Remember Big Rock?
the fucking Big Rock.
She has to have a big rock.
Honestly.
I'm like, no.
Oh.
It's hard though, because you don't know until you go through it. So like you going through your divorce or separation or anything like that, you don't get it, and you look at your parents, you go, fuck. How did you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, it must have been hard. And, I saw my old man struggle a little bit, because we went from, like, having dual income household to just him by himself trying to raise a teenage daughter, you know. And, my old man is one of my best mates. And, and we sort of learned to grow together, I guess. And I think the one thing that... I think about it now, and it wasn't until I actually started going to therapy, which we'll get into, like, why I went to therapy later on. But I went to my therapist, and she's like, I think you have a bit of, like, childhood trauma, because instead of a father figure, you've got a peer figure there. So he was... he was a great role model, and he taught me the greatest skills, how to change a tire, how to check your oil in the car, how to change a truck tire, like all of this really, really valuable shit. But at the same time, we were kind of like learning to live together without, like, my brother had gone. He was in Adelaide by this time, so he kind of missed out on the separation. And I felt as a kid, I had a bit of a responsibility to help out. So as soon as I turned 16, I got a job. And I was just like, I need to start, like, earning money so I can contribute and do all this stuff. At the same time, my old man's, working his ass off on minimum wage, like 4 days a week, trying to cover, schooling expenses, drive me everywhere. And then, and like he himself was trying to recover from 32 years of marriage breaking down as well. So that was a huge learning curve, I think, especially when it comes to, like, relationships and that sort of thing. So I learned a lot throughout that time, and, God, went through all the boyfriends, and my old man, I say he's my best friend because he had to, deal with, periods, and he took me to, get my pill when I turned 16. Like, he sat in it, he literally had no idea what to do, so he's like, what the fuck, like, he took me into, like, the local health center, and he knew the girls because obviously he worked at the hospital as well with them, and he's just like, she needs birth control, can you help her? And the girls are like, yes, we'll help her. And then he's just like, great, I'll stay here. You do what you need to do. And so he just waited patiently. He was such a good dad. And, and my mum, at the same time, she she tried, and I know
Yeah.
that she sort of tried to extend the olive branch to me. Like, she gave me books to read and that sort of thing. But, you know, I didn't have that relationship with her.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel comfortable enough to talk to her about a lot of the things. Now, we're just like an open book. I'm
Yeah.
just like, let's talk about everything sex-wise. Talk to me about the great stuff, you know?
It's so important, though.
It is, yeah.
We
but
have discussions like that with our
Yeah.
kids, and some people are like, I can't believe you say that. And I'm like, they need to be aware.
they need to
Yeah.
know, right?
Yep.
And yeah, it was just, I remember getting this book from her, and it was a Kaz Cook book.
Yep.
And I read that from cover to cover, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I don't understand any of this, but I just keep reading through it because
Yep.
I'm like, at this age, hadn't had sex, hadn't had a boyfriend, like, had no idea about any of it. So yeah, my dad was really good. Like, he would drive me to work and,
Yep.
you know, do all of that jazz. And then eventually, I think I was like, it must have been like 16 and 9 months because I had my license by that
Yep.
stage. And he had met someone. And he stopped sort of coming out to the farm. So,
Yep.
again, when I went to therapy, we sort of, like, dissected that a little bit.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think you have a little bit of, like, abandonment issues.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, well, that explains so much because it felt like I lost in this, like, space of, like, 2 years or 3 years. My brother had gone.
Yep.
My mum had then gone. And then all of a sudden, I was, like, looking after, you know, the place out of Pomona.
At 16 and a half.
Yeah. Yep. So,
Yep.
and I was like, well, you know, that's fine. But again, it just like, I had my job. So I would go to work. I was still trying to go to school as well.
Yeah.
And then it just got to the point where I enjoyed work more than school.
Yeah.
So when I was like, I think it must be like when you're 17, or it was just before my 18th birthday, I think. That's when I was doing year 12. And I got so sick. I got glandular fever.
Oh, God.
And it just bowled me for 6. So I skipped like half of year 12.
And just went, nah.
And I
good.
laughed so hard at this because when I got to year 12, I was studying legal studies.
Yeah.
I got a D in legal studies, so I failed, basically.
Yeah.
I think. And then I went on to actually work in a law firm for
I love that.
years.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. And I always laugh when I hear young people talking about what they want to do with their life, and they're like, oh, I've got to go study this at school, and I've got to do that. I'm like, you don't need to do shit. If you've got a brain between your ears, you can do anything that you want to.
Street smarts, hustling,
Yeah.
and working hard.
Exactly.
You can't trump it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have
right.
an education and not use it.
Yes, yeah. So
with that.
I think that, when obviously like he was seeing this woman, and, you know, I could see that, you know, that was where he needed to heal. That was his way. So I sort of like tried to leave him alone as much as I could. But then it got to the stage where I was just like, well, what am I doing here? You know, like, why am I looking after everything when you're hardly ever home? So I ended up moving into town with my partner, with my boyfriend, when I was like 17, and I thought that I was like the coolest kid. And and then after that, you know, and I mentioned this one phrase on the show, and they just ran with it the whole fucking time: tumultuous relationships.
Oh, God.
And I got torn to fucking shreds. Ugh. I was like almost vomit material when I read the comments and stuff. It's like, oh, she's had many tumultuous relationships.
Show me someone who hasn't.
Right. And I was like, well, my first boyfriend cheated on me.
Yep.
And then I was with a guy. I just turned 18, and I met this guy in the pub. Drew and Luke, if you're listening to this, you're the bomb. But yeah, they were the boys, you know. They everyone wanted to be with them. And so I was 18. I think at the time he must have been 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and we kind of just connected, you know, whatever happened, and then I ended up moving in with him.
Yep.
So I was with for like 18 months. Again, it was just up and down. He was sort of stuck on his ex. You're going to laugh at this. I'm going to tell her to listen.
Yeah,
to this.
Okay.
He was sort of hung up on his ex and couldn't get over her. And at the same time, he was going through a lot. His mum was sick with cancer, and unfortunately she did pass away. I was lucky enough that her and we didn't see eye to eye at first. And she called me one day when I was at work, and she's in tears, and she's like, Daisy, I need you to come and shave my head for me. Like, I can't do this anymore. So that was our bonding moment.
Wow.
And and I have a lot of regrets about her because I didn't go and see her because I just couldn't. I would rather remember her as I knew her rather than when she was on her deathbed. So she was lovely. And there was just a couple of times, like, you know, was 30, he was like, he did drugs, he did, you know, it was all of that jazz. He just went out and did willy-nilly, but he was a country boy.
Yeah.
So he loved fishing, he loved pigging, and I was at home a lot of the time because I had a job at a real estate in town. So when I left there, I think throughout the 18 months, my dad moved me in and out of there like 3 times. And by the 3rd time, he looked at me and was like, Days, I'm not doing this again. And I looked at him and I was like, nah. Neither am I. So that was the second part. So that was when I was 18. And then when I was like, I think I was like 20 or something, I was like dating a cop. He cheated on me too. And then I was like 21. I met a pilot. And he was beautiful. He's a great guy. And he did nothing wrong. But I was just at that age where I wanted more from life. And I knew that the town that I was in and the friendship group that I was in wasn't going to give me that.
Okay.
So, you know, when and I get so frustrated these days when I see kids and they're just like, oh, you know, like, these are my group of friends. This is going to be me till the end. And I'm just like, where are you going? Like, I've said it to a couple of the girls in Wentworth. And I see them like, oh, what are you doing with your life? Like, are you going to go to uni? Are you going to do that? And they're like, no, we're going to work here at the pub. And I'm just like, awesome.
There's more opportunities out
right?
there. Right?
And I feel like in a small town, I don't think that there's a lot of big people. I think a lot of people settle in small towns. And that's definitely what's happened. And, like, everyone in Wentworth is going to be probably hating on me for this podcast. Get in line. I think Wentworth, people settle. And in Wentworth and Mildura, where I was, friendship group that I had formed, they were either doing drugs or they were having babies. And I was like, I'm fucking 21 years old. I don't want to do either.
Small town things.
So I, at that time, like, I hadn't touched drugs. I didn't want to be a part of it. I was so against it. I was like, no, not me. Again, my old man sort of instilled, he's like, don't fucking do that shit. Sort of stuck to it. I decided to move to Townsville. So, and then I was just like, it was this completely by random line of events. I went to Bali for a holiday. As I was driving so obviously the closest international airport is Melbourne from us, so it's like 8 hours away. So I had my mate with me and we were driving to Melbourne and I get a call from my old man. And he's like, Days, Caden's died. So one of my good friends was in a plane accident. And I was like, what did he say? He called me and he was like, Caden, we've lost Caden or something. And I was like, what do you mean? Is he all right? And by this stage, I'm like 6 hours away. And he's in tears and he's like, no, he didn't make it. And so I had to pull over and I'm like, what do you mean he didn't make it? Like, what do you even, I couldn't even get through my head that, you know, last week I'd seen him in the pub and he was this beautiful, bigger than life personality and such an amazing person and everyone loved him. And all of a sudden he's just gone. And it broke my heart and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, there's got to be more to life than this fucking town, you know? It's it's sucking the life out of people and it's taking the best of us because we don't deserve to be there. So I went to Bali. I applied for a job in Townsville here and I applied for a house as I was, like, sitting in the airport. And then I was like, I don't know when it was. It was like the second last day that we were there, I get this phone call from Townsville. And I'm like, oh, this is random. Pick up, hey Days, you've been approved for your house. And I'm like, amazing, awesome, when can I pick up keys? And then the next day, I got a call from the real estate that I applied for. And they're like, do you want to work here? And I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I've got the house. And I got home and, I got on the phone before I got home and I said to Dad, I was just like, I need a hand. I need a hand to move to Townsville. So he chucked me a few grand to sort of get me on my feet. I flew back into Australia on the Wednesday. And I think it was like 6 a.m. when we flew into Melbourne. We drove 8 hours home. And then I packed up my car, left at 3 a.m. on the Thursday. And I drove 24 hours straight and I pulled into Charters Towers. I think it was like 2:30 that I pulled into Charters Towers or maybe 3:30. And I was just like, I'm busted. Like, I cannot drive anymore. So I just slept there till 5, got up, drove the rest of the way to Townsville. And yeah, I've been here. Well, I was here, for
So
5
you
years.
just take any opportunity
Exactly.
and run with
I
it.
think if it's a great opportunity
Yep.
that is going to offer growth, I'm 100% there.
And that's the key word, hey, growth.
Yes.
If it's going to better you, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out and you're better than you were before,
Exactly.
or in a different space.
Yes,
or...
exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that it sort of baffles me a little bit these days where people are they're so sedentary in their life, and
Yep.
then they will openly talk to me, or like I get so many DMs about like, oh, how you going? And then I'll be like, oh, I'm good, like how are you going? And then they'll just drone on about how bad their life is.
Trauma dump almost.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry that that's happening to you. I do sympathize with you, but what are you going to do to change that, And that's always my key question. I'm just like, what are we going to do? And I always say we, because I'm just like, what can I help you with that will help you get to where you need to be? And I might not be able to do anything, but maybe they just need some support.
Yeah.
All I needed was for my mate, because I had a mate here in Townsville, and I was like, if things go south, can I come and live with you? And he's like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Sweet.
And I think that that's just the difference. Is like, if someone has like one person that truly gives them support and believes in them, then like you can do anything.
That's all you need, isn't
exactly.
it?
Exactly. And so, but the disappointing thing in that, on the opposite side of that, is that you try and help them, and then they don't
Some
do
people
anything
can't be
about
helped.
it. Yeah.
They want to stay in that victim mentality that
Yes.
I was born here, the cards weren't dealt my way, and it's like you can deal another hand.
Yes.
And
exactly.
another until you get what you need or you change the cards.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah, so yeah, I was really, really grateful for, and again, in hindsight is a wonderful thing sometimes, because I look back and I'm just like, all of those tough times throughout school, hardening me up from bullying, the times where I had to live by myself and survive by myself, and all of that made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared of anything. And, and I think it's so great. And I think it's for a woman and for young girls I'm so excited to have a daughter one day, so that I can be like, this girl's going to be the baddest bitch out, you know? And I think there's so much power in not having to ask for help. For things. Like, there's no shame in asking for help, and if I need help, I will definitely reach out. But if I can figure out some way around it that I can do it myself and I can fix things myself, then I will. And I think that, a lot of young girls these days, I don't know, I talk to a lot of young girls. My demographic is like 86% female on my Instagram at the moment, so which is amazing, because I remember at one stage it was the opposite. When I first got into the fitness industry, there was a lot of men following me and not a lot of women, and I was just like, how do I turn the tables on this? And then that's when I was just like, maybe there needs to be more support, I suppose, or someone to lean on that, I don't even know how to say it, someone that will speak up. And not be afraid to speak up, and then people follow suit.
Is this why it was so important for you to speak out after Farmer Wants a Wife?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's, like, I know you, and I wasn't shocked by it, but it's fucking ballsy when you're coming up against a massive national media company with lawyers lined up, ready to silence you.
Yeah.
Why was it so important that you just went, actually, no, this is fucked?
Yeah. I think it really upset me throughout filming. I had a really, really great relationship with my producers. Like, I posted a thing on socials today.
Was that you guys dancing together?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked it.
And they were great, and that was one of the producers. We had another producer. And on the farm, they were great. And I just made the mistake of trusting that they would actually look after us and look after my image as well, because they knew why I was there, and they knew that I wasn't there to fuck around. Literally, before I even walked in to see Todd, my producer looked at me, he's like, Days, don't fuck around. You know why you're here. Just go straight in, get what you need to, and figure it out. He said, if he's not what you want, then don't waste your time. I'm just like, awesome. Like, he's looking after me. And
so
then
he did his job well. He made you feel safe.
He did, yeah. And throughout the whole process, he did that. And, he would come up to me before every filming scene and he would be like, do you need to talk to Todd? And I was like, well, I would like to, but if the opportunity doesn't arise, then that's fine. He's like, no, that's all right. We'll get your time tonight. So he would they would always put me on the side facing the door inside where they would sit, and he would just poke his head out and just give me a nod. And I'd be like, oh, can I steal you away for a chat? And that's how they do it, know.
Okay.
But then after it finished, there was a lot of things that you read from previous seasons that, girls get snuffed out very quickly. But this season, I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know whether it was to do with the bullying of, Bert. I don't know whether it was to do with the bullying of the girls. But they fucked up really bad.
Yeah.
And they breached their contract several times with the bullying and harassment. I still have no idea. I said this to Megan Pistetto on So Dramatic.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they get around the pay thing.
No, that was when I crunched those numbers when I was listening. I was like, sorry, what?
Yeah,
and
it's
for that
crazy.
period of time.
Yes, yeah. So, and it still blows my mind. A lot of the girls on our farm had to take unpaid leave. They were teachers. They were working casual as well. There was a couple of girls that were casual. I was lucky enough at the time that I was running Air Locker.
Yep.
So, I had that income coming in. But, yeah, it just, I think when it came to air, I was so upset that they had felt it was right in their minds that was the right portrayal of me.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. I was so heartbroken about it. And I watched the first episode. First episode wasn't too bad. Second episode at camping, when they showed that scene where I was telling Todd about my breakdown of my marriage.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was just like, what the hell? And then I read the comments. I should listen to Joe Rogan and not even
and not read them.
Read
it's
the
hard though, because you've worked really hard and you're proud of who you are.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I read the comments and people just going to town saying, oh, she's had a breakdown of her marriage. No one even takes a breath when you say that you've had a broken down marriage to think whose fault it is, who's responsible, why did it happen. Whoever admits that they've been in a broken down marriage, it's just all guns blazing to them. Yeah, so that was really upsetting as well, because in the breakdown of my marriage, I've been really open about this as well, and I've spoken to Todd about it as well, and something that wasn't shown on the TV show either was the conversation with the friends about, the split with my ex-husband was amicable. It wasn't at first, but we were just going in different directions. And, I think that, we'd been together for 18 months by that stage. And I think, yes, we did rush into it, but we were so enthralled with each other at the time. And again, it was probably a trauma bond because he saved me from the floods in Townsville. So, it probably was a trauma bond, but we are still good friends. I wouldn't say good friends, but we still talk.
That says a lot.
Yeah. And, and when we left, I went through a really shocking relationship, and he actually extended the olive branch to me, and he was just like, would you like to catch up for a coffee? And I remember sitting at this table bawling my eyes out, and I just looked at him and I'm like, I'm so sorry if you ever felt like this when we were separating, because this is fucking awful. It was just, I was so down, and it just absolutely broke me, the breakdown of this other relationship.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't too long ago, I think it was Anzac Day actually, that I reached out because I had to finalise something. And and he was like, oh yeah, and I couldn't get onto him, so I messaged his fiance, and I was just like, I'm so sorry if this is really awkward, but I can't get onto.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you can, help me out. Anyway, so she responded, and we're all good. We're all sweet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until something happened and my friends came to my aid in the comments and said something that was in relation to another of my relationships, but it was misconstrued and someone took it as a comment about.
Yeah.
So then there was a really big blow up between.
Is this when you had to come on? You're like, friends, I appreciate you having my back.
Yeah.
But I've got this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because there was a big blow up and his sister came into the picture and was, being nasty. And I was just like, I have no shame in blowing this wide open. I really don't.
Yeah.
I have been respectful enough. We we've been good. Like, I don't want to drag you into it. He's in a high security job, and he doesn't need anything.
All this extra crap.
Exactly. So, so I was just like, oh, like, I thought that we were good. He's like, yep, we are good. There was just, like, a bit of
noise,
misconstrued information. And so I messaged my mates and I was just like, just delete the comments. Just get off. Don't worry about it. Like, people will be assholes. Yeah, so that was that. And, so again, like, it was just another failed relationship. Then it really took me, like, and as I was getting on, I was sort of just like, fuck me, like, give me something good, like, give me some good luck,
I'm not all the things that have happened in my past.
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
Here is all the other good stuff.
Yeah. So, and I think about it now and I'm just like, fuck, I should write a book of, like, my life. And, my life's probably, in relation to, I'm not saying my life was hard at all, but fuck, it hasn't been easy.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
No.
So, like, I just think having to grow up really, really fast, moving away from everyone that I knew, but, I've made a new family here in Townsville, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then after the breakdown of my marriage, I was seeing people, making a connection with this guy. So I was seeing him for about 12 months, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We worked in a gym together. He is quite a high-profile person here in Townsville.
Yeah.
And, it was when I was seeing him that's when, I started dabbling in the drugs. Not anything bad. It's just a bit of coke here and there.
Yep.
So I did. So I got involved in the drugs. It was just a group that I was hanging out with at the time. So I was, like, experimenting, and it was the first night that I'd ever experimented with drugs.
Yep.
And we went back to his place. And I can openly talk about this now because I've gone through so much therapy and healing and done all this shit.
And therapy is self-care, people. It's
so
as good as getting
good.
your eyebrows done.
Honestly, yeah.
Yes.
I love my therapist, if you're watching this.
You cannot leave,
Yeah.
ever.
But yeah, so I ended up going back to his place. We were with a couple of friends.
Yeah.
Just fooling around. They left, and then he ended up downing like 10 Valiums.
Wow.
So he blacked out.
Yeah.
Mentally. He says to this day that, he cannot remember what happened. He has no recollection of it, but...
No, you just go numb and like a blob on the floor.
Yeah. So, he just went funny, and I was just like, I think I'm gonna go. So he had anger issues. He had a lot of issues, but he had anger issues at the time. I went to pack my bag. He punched in a wall and told me that he wanted it to be my head. And I was like, God. Right, I need to get the fuck. My fucking spidey senses just went off. And I was just like, no, I need to get the fuck out of this place.
Let's get out.
So there was only one way in and out of this place. And it was right at the other end of the house. His other door was like broken or something. And, so I grabbed my bag and I went to leave. And he was like, he sort of like come in and out of, like emotional consciousness, I guess. And he was like, no, please don't go. Like, I don't want you to go. And I'm like, I cannot stay here while you're in this frame of mind. And then I'd go to leave. The first attempt I made, he ran to the door, closed it. And as I tried to walk past, he grabbed a kitchen chair and threw it at me. And I was like, what the actual fuck? So I put my bag down, tried to talk to him in order to calm him down and get him out of my way. That did not succeed. I picked up my bag, tried to walk past him. He then grabbed me in a chokehold and choked me out until I blacked out. I woke up on the floor and he was on the couch and he's like, crying. He's like, I've never laid hands on a woman before. I'm so sorry. And he tried to come near. I said, do not fucking come near me at all. He kind of got the message. He was aware enough that he got up and he left me alone, and I got on the couch and I was just sitting there. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get out of the situation? Because
he's potentially sitting in the other room going, if she goes, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So I don't know what was going on through his head. I don't really know how aware he was of what he was doing. So my bag was sitting in the kitchen at this point. So I got up. I was like, okay, I I will try and calmly get out. I went into the kitchen. He had this idea in his head that, I was sleeping with all these people and I wasn't. And I was just
Paranoia.
like, yeah. And I was just like, right, okay, I'm going to go. Picked up my bag again. It was at this stage where he approached me. He grabbed me by the throat and he picked me up and he dragged me to the bedroom. And he pinned me down on the bed and he was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And he had his hands around my throat. And I remember just sitting there looking at him. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, my old man's going to get a call in the morning that his daughter's dead. One of the most fucked up experiences I've ever had in my fucking life. I pray to whatever God or angel or whatever was looking over me that day, because he came to. You could see his pupils just go from dinner plates to normal size. He came to, realized what he was doing, jumped off me, and he's like, what the fuck have I done? I was like, kind of in shock, and you're kind of just like, fuck, like this man that I love just tried to kill me.
Yeah.
And so he then went to the bathroom. He grabbed a razor and he's like, if you leave me, I'm gonna kill myself. And I grabbed him and I remember running to the bathroom and I grabbed him and I looked at him. I'm like, please come back to me.
Yeah.
Please just look at me and tell me that you're here. Please come back. Because I was like, if I leave, he's gonna be dead in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love this man. And I did. I had so much love for this guy. And I was like, I can't let him just kill himself, like this is what it is. And I'm just like, let's just go to bed. So again, one of the most fucked up things in my life, I've had to go to bed with the guy that's just physically assaulted me. And then the most, it's just fucked. Like, this is like, when they do like trauma dumping things on like TikTok and they like laugh about it. This is what this is. You gotta laugh.
It's a coping mechanism.
Honestly, I think about it now. I'm like, oh my fucking God, how stupid was I? So I went to bed with this guy, and then we woke up in the morning. He's got up, the wall that he punched in, he looks at me and he's like, what did you do to me to make me do that? And I was like, fuck this. Like, I just got up. I was like, you assaulted me last night.
I literally survived last night and held you till you went to sleep so you wouldn't kill me.
Yeah.
And what did I do?
Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. I said, this is it. We're done.
Yeah.
All is good. I'm not going to report you to the police, which was like, what would I have got out of it? It was a really fucked up relationship and it really fucked me up.
So
mentally.
How do you, obviously with a bit of therapy
yes.
and that, open yourself up to anyone again?
I know. So it was like, I don't know, through that, I met another guy. Through that relationship, I got into the boxing industry.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the best relationship building things I've ever done. Like, I got my foot in the door. I started going to, boxing competitions and that sort of thing. Yeah, and then through boxing, I met this other guy who was younger than me, really, really nice, but I still obviously had a lot of trauma. And by this stage, I hadn't gone to therapy yet because I was like, I don't need it. I was still in denial. I was like, nah, not going to do it. And the sad thing about it is that I can talk openly about it now.
Yep.
But at the time, I think it happened in like July or something, or June. And I didn't tell anyone about it until like August, I think, was like the first person I spoke to about it. I couldn't tell my dad, my old man, and I talked to my old man about everything. And he was like going through some like heart problems, blood pressure problems at the time. And I'm just like, if I tell him this, he's going to fucking fizzle out and he's going to die.
What was it? Was it the shame that you put around yourself about it, or the
I was really ashamed that I had put myself in a situation like that. And I was really ashamed to admit that I had love for him and that was the reason why, I stayed with him. Because there was other little things in there where he would not make me feel real great. I think I cried a lot in that relationship as well. But
you hang on to that
you
little bit
do.
of good you see in them, and you're like, I know they're in there somewhere. And if I love them more.
It is. It's that narcissistic abuse. It's just like they give you just enough to keep you coming back. And this guy was gorgeous, you know, and I was just like, God, how does an overweight kid from the bush end up with this beautiful man, you know? And I just thought, oh, you know, like this is like all my dreams come true, like power couple.
So your story that the boys told you back in school when you were younger is what you carried through to this relationship.
Correct. Yeah.
Well into your 20s.
Yeah, correct.
You just said it then, that overweight girl from the bush.
Yeah.
How could she get this guy?
Exactly. So, you know, and I still had this, again, I hadn't gone to therapy at this point. So I had no idea about these underlying thoughts.
Therapy was so taboo.
Oh, it was, yeah.
And it still is to a degree.
Yeah. And I met this other guy and, younger than me, you know, and I think I was with him sort of on and off for about 18 months.
Yeah.
So it was like early last year that we actually officially split things off. I had a lot of trauma that I dragged into that relationship.
Yeah.
And so for the first 6 months of that relationship, I was not a very nice person to him. And I'll admit that any day of the week, I was an awful person when I came
your
out.
walls just up very high. And
and I think I was just like when I first started seeing him, I was the oldest one in the group as well because his friends were his age. So I think I had like 4 years, maybe 3 years on the eldest one there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, cool, do we need drugs? Like, do we need, like, what do you need? I could get it for us. Like, thinking that that was the person and that's who I was for a while. And I was really, I look back now, I'm not ashamed of it. Like, I don't regret anything in life because it sort of leads you to who you become.
Yep.
But after that 6 months, like, he left me because he was like, I cannot be with someone like you. And I think I needed him to point out, he didn't do it in a nice way. It was really nasty. But the way that he left, I was like begging him not to go.
Yeah.
And again, those abandonment issues popping their heads up that I had no idea about until I went to therapy. So it was after that I was just like, fuck, I need to go see someone because I feel myself slipping away from the person that I was raised to be.
Yeah.
And
in order to hang on to somebody.
Exactly. And I was just like, fuck. So I went to therapy. I think I got like 5 sessions or something from like a GP.
Ones.
Yeah. So I went there and I just kept going. And I was like, it started off as like, I think I was like 2 a month.
Yeah.
And then I went down, I did that for a couple of months and I went down to like 1 a month. And then it was like, whenever you need to talk, give us a call. So I was like, awesome. And then eventually, like, I know that I have no shame in admitting that I've gone to therapy. I think it is such a taboo topic and people are almost, I don't know, afraid to talk about it, I guess.
Oh, look, full disclosure, I've gone to 2 administered mental health hospitals. I did 3.5 weeks.
Amazing.
And then 6 years later I did 8 weeks.
Yeah.
In the middle, like no contact. And the shame from that.
Yeah.
But tell you what, I wouldn't be here today.
Exactly.
So,
and I think it's so amazing that like even speaking about it and even having the strength to speak about it, I think there's so much strength in that. I have so much time for everyone and I openly talk about it, you know, I openly talk about therapy. I openly talk about my assault. I openly talk about the narcissistic abuse that I went through.
Yeah.
Because then on the other side of that, I went through therapy. I was split up with this guy for a few months, but then he had absorbed so much of my negativity.
Yeah.
And I think there's obviously other factors, like he had a broken down family as well. He had a lot of childhood traumas as well.
Yeah.
When we came back together, he was awful. Like he was so awful, and he knew that I loved him so much that he used that directly against me. Like I think he broke up with me like before my birthday, Christmas. There was like this time where we went to Toowoomba and I paid so much money to like get us there.
Yeah.
I think we got back at like midnight and he wanted to go see his mum to get a video of his fight.
Yeah.
We got back home, it was like 12:30 or something, and he just sat in the kitchen, and I was like, oh, something's up, like this is weird.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to be with you.
At 1
This
a.m.
is, yeah, and I'm just like, what the actual fuck? Like, what is just going on? So I was just miserable. And, you know, a lot of the time throughout that relationship, I was miserable.
Yeah.
And it really upsets me because I did love him. And it wasn't until probably the last few months of our relationship, he relocated to Brisbane to follow his dream, you know, and I was in full support of that. I was like, what can I do to help you get there? Again, I kept on pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. I'm like, you need to get out of Townsville. You need to go away because you're not going to get anything that you need out of Townsville. He was born here. I recommend any kid, any person, any adult, I should say, in their like late teens, early 20s, get the fuck out of your hometown.
Go experience something.
Even if it's for 6 months. And, you know, the one piece of advice my old man gave me before I moved to Townsville, he's like, you can always come home.
That's it.
You can always come home.
What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think that that's sort of the advice that I've sort of clung on to as well.
Yeah.
When I'm doing anything, I'm just like, well, if I, again, like when I moved to the farm, I said to my friends here, I'm just like, I've got to give up my house, I've got to give up my job, my friends, my family, I've got to give up everything to move to this guy's farm that, you know, I've known him for 4 weeks, you know, from inception of the whole idea and from meeting him, and then to final decision, it was like I think it was just under 4 weeks. And I'm just like, I have made the decision. So after final decision, I was with him for a week.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I'm going to move to the farm.
Yeah, because I saw the car all packed up and I'm like, she's going.
Yeah.
I was like, I love that your friends were so behind you.
Yeah.
Because you had one drove down with you or?
Yes. Yeah. My friend Chris.
Yes.
So he, so for, I think it was like the week that I was staying there. I had no idea that, and neither did Todd, because we were both broke as fuck by this stage because we hadn't worked for so long. And I was just like, right, well, I can drive home, I guess, because I'm like, flights from Narrabri to Townsville are like $2,000. I'm like,
because what do you got to go fly to here, to here, to here,
right,
and then up here?
Yeah, because you got to go Narrabri, Sydney, I think it was Sydney, Townsville. Yeah. So, so it was like $2,000 or something, and it's like $600 in fuel.
Yeah.
So my mate Chris is just like, "Fuck it, I'm coming to the farm." So he came down, spent a week with us. Then we drove back together.
Yeah.
And then I drove back. I packed up my car, drove back down by myself, and then spent Christmas with Todd and his family. Todd and I drove back up, spent New Year's here.
Yep.
And then we both drove back together, and So it's like, again, it's just that thing that you have to be, being scared drives me. If there's something...
If it scares you, you got to do it.
100%.
What do they say? 3 seconds of courage
is
all it takes.
Yeah. And people are just like, you know, people are like, oh, you're jumping into things too fast. It's just like, it scared the fucking living daylights out of me. I did it, and it was the best decision I ever made.
But there's being scared, and then there's being calculated.
Yes.
And you go, look. And again, like your dad said,
you
just come home if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. So, I think that all of that, you know, like all of the, you know, failed relationships, the trauma, all of that. Are they failed though? I think they're lessons. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't regret any of them. I have made peace with, you know, all of these people. You know, they're all living their lives, and I know that a lot of them have children now, and I'm so happy for them. I look back at it and I'm just like, what a great freaking lesson. I think the hardest lesson for me was having to, especially in relationships, I had to walk away from the last relationship completely still in love with him. Because we had no choice. We were just destroying each other. Yeah. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was then when I went to this healing thing on the beach in Kalaranda. Yep. And it was fucking unreal.
And like breath work and how good.
It was so good. And I had my friend Ash living with me at the time, and she's like, do you want to do this? I'm like, fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Like, we went there, we thought, oh my God, these people are kooky as fuck.
Are we going to get naked and dance around a fire?
And like,
but
it
also,
was,
let's do it.
It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life.
Thing.
And it was like it was like freeing childhood trauma. That's what it was based around. And what I spent like the first 20 minutes, I was like sitting there like with this grin on my face, my eyes closed, laughing silently at these people that were just like
the noises around you,
screaming out their traumas. And I'm just like, and I look over at my friend Ash, and she just look at me, and we're like, oh my God, are we in
you're
the
like,
right
why
place?
aren't I doing this yet? It's not working. Then all of a sudden,
and then
you're
all
like,
of a sudden, I sat up, and I just had this, I don't know, it was like a recognition of like where I was in life, and that this agony that I was holding on to from this relationship, I didn't want to let it go, because I had so much love for this guy. And I was sitting there, it was a full moon ceremony, so I'm sitting there looking at the moon, and I just started bawling my eyes out. It was just like someone had just reached in and ripped my heart out, and it's just like, I was like, this is the sign that I need to let go of this. So at the end of this breathwork ceremony, you have to write down the things that you want to let go. And I had his name written in bold letters across this piece of paper. And I went to the fire, and I stood there, and I couldn't chuck it in. And I was sitting there just bawling my eyes out, and Ash is like, take your time, we can be here for as long as you want. And then I was just like, I just had this like moment, and I just dropped it in, and I was like,
and watched it just
and I just cried and cried and cried. And then I got home, and I got in the shower, and I just cried and cried and cried, because I'm just like, I have to
get it out.
I have to cut this. Like, I have to end this because it's not good for me. And then after that, life got fucking amazing. And then I got the opportunity to start my own business. And, built that up. And then, as heartbreaking as that was to walk away from Air Locker, such an incredible lesson in business and communication and networking, and again, scared the shit out of me. The success of that was because of the work that I put in. The closure of that was not any of my
Nothing
doing.
To do with
so
you.
So I was kind of lucky that I did leave when I did, because unfortunately it has closed down now, but due to external circumstances. I think that taking that leap into that business world, as you would know, it's fucking terrifying. When you've got to and there's so much to it.
You're flying a plane and you've got no idea how to fly it.
I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I had a really, really good team behind me as well, and I was very grateful for them for holding down the fort while I was away filming, because literally we opened and then I had to fly out for filming the next day. And then in between all of that, I think we finished it. I was sitting in the car at 1 p.m. The night before, I think I got home at 1 a.m. And then I woke up at 3 and got back to the gym by 3:30.
Wow.
Ran the open day, did all that jazz, sitting in the car at 1 p.m. I'm getting all these messages like, are we going out for open day drinks? I'm just like, fuck. I'm just like, yeah, no worries. So drove home, got changed, came back into town. I think I got home at 10 p.m. Chris was with me. He went through all the trauma with me, pre-Farmer Wants a Wife.
Wow.
But he was with me, and we're packing my bag at midnight. He's like, you do realise that you fly out at 5 a.m, right? I'm like,
love that. Typical Daisy style. We're pushing it.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah. So he dropped me to the airport at 5 a.m. the next day. And I was like, I hope I haven't forgotten anything. You get one 23-kilo bag to pack all of this shit in.
That's a lot of stuff to take. Boots are heavy.
So much. And I was just I think I came in just under, and there was a couple of girls that just didn't care. They bought 32 kilos worth of
that's
stuff.
Expensive shit.
Yeah. Again, it's so funny to look back on.
Yeah.
And I look back on all of that stuff that has just built me and built my character.
Yeah.
And I think why I got so upset when the show aired, I don't even know if I answered this question because we were talking.
That's right. We'll get back to it. Full circle moment.
I think why I got so upset was because I do know that I am a good person. And, for so long I thought that I wasn't a good person. And, and I questioned my morals and I questioned everything, you know, when I got sucked into the world of drugs and all of that. And, you know, it took me a long while to sort of come clean to my mum especially. And when I brought up to her that I was doing that stuff, like she was just so disappointed, you know, and like it is what it is. I'm sure she did that stuff too back in the day. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You've gone through all of this, right? It's all behind you.
Yeah.
You've done the work. What's next? Because that door is shut. You can draw the line in the sand now, and you've got this beautiful man.
Yeah.
This beautiful property with all your animals. It's fucking cold, yes.
So fucking cold.
But you're back in real estate.
Yes.
How has life changed post-farmer? Like, do people come up to you on the street? Is it a positive interaction?
It's so funny because, you know, Narrabride's a really small town.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of knows who we are, but I think the most attention that we get is out of visitors.
Gotcha.
So like even coming back last night to Townsville, you know, people come up to you and they're just like, can we get a photo with you? Like, we know who you are. We watch you on farm. I was like, I swear I'm nicer in person. Like,
is it still weird? Like, want a photo? Oh shit.
It is really weird, but you know,
people staring.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing that has been, you know, it's been tricky for me to navigate is the social media growth.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people that are under the impression that, you know, when you're on social media, like, oh, you get paid a lot of money for doing these things. Like, I get sent stuff by people and I feel obligated to, like, I only have a handful of companies that I actually get paid from, that I get kickback from. I myself look for discount codes everywhere.
Yes.
Because I'm a cheap fuck.
Yep.
And I'm
Same,
like,
girl.
I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, who has a 10% discount code for that? So that's what I want to give people. I want to, like, if I can work with brands, especially small businesses, that's what I freaking love at the moment, is like small businesses approaching me and being like, hey, can you like help us out?
Yeah.
And in myself, I'm like, you know, I'm busy as fuck with work, but you know, it takes 5 minutes for me to do up a video. It takes like 2 seconds for me to take a photo. And if I can give that exposure to 25,000 people on my social media, that's 25,000 more people that are seeing their stuff than if they're only starting out, they've got a couple hundred, maybe a couple of thousand followers, you know. So I'm really lucky to be in this position now,
and
where
using
I can
it for good.
Exactly, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do, and you know, I'm very grateful for. I don't expect anything from these companies. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have. But yeah, it is just really funny. Like, you know, people come up, and I had a few people come in, and they're like, oh, is Daisy in the office? And the girl who works in reception at my office, she comes down, she's like, got someone here that wants to get a photo
some fans
with
in
you.
reception.
And just like, and I'm like, it's all right. Like, it's 2 seconds. I don't think of myself as a reality star at all. Like, I'm just a normal human being, and people approach us in the supermarket a lot, and like they recognize Todd first because of his beard. Yeah. And I try and sort of like slink into the background, like, and he grabs me. He's like, Daisy's here too. I'm just like, hi.
Is he a bit quieter, is he?
He is, yeah. He I don't know, he sort of likes just keeping his own company. Yep. And I think, again, the thing that we sort of try and navigate in this new relationship is I'm so outgoing and I love going out, getting dressed up, you know, like last night at the boxing. Like, when will I ever get the chance to get dressed up like that in Narrabri?
Just
Never.
do it like date night Saturday on the farm.
Just,
pull out the Freddies and the boots and the plaid.
100%. And so he's just so happy to just be at home in his own company. And I think because he was single for like 3 years before the show, so he's just learnt to be around himself. And you know, I get frustrated sometimes, and he's so patient, and I love this about him so much, but I get stuck in my own head, and I'm just like, I'm so sad today, you know. And he's just like, why? And I'm like, well, I miss my friends, you know, because like it used to be so great here because I would work flat out. Like, I'd get up at 4 a.m, go coach at one business, go to another business, and then if I had my third job that day, I'd go work there till 8 o'clock. So it'd be like 4 to 8. And then on the way home, I'd like text my mate and be like, are you home? She'd be like, yeah. I'm like, cool, I'm coming around for a wine. So I think that connection and that interaction with my mates is what I'm missing the most. And some days, like Todd's my best mate. Like we're such good friends as well. And I think that's so integral in a good relationship.
Yeah, you've got to be friends first. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
So we've always had that really, really good relationship, like from the get go. And so I always take the piss out of him. I'm just like, well, I don't know if I'm your best friend, but you're my best friend, you know, like. But yeah, and I sit there and I'm like, oh, I'm just a bit down today, you know, like just missing that friend interaction. He's just like, oh, well, and I'm like, why don't we go anywhere, you know? And he's just like, well, there's nowhere to go, you know, and he just tries so hard, and you know, and that's what I love about him. And yeah, I think we're just like two sides of a coin, you know. And I think that I always bring it back to like the comparison between, you know, Grace and I. And I think the one reason that they might not have worked out was because they were too similar.
They'd sit there and not talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, right, what are we doing? Let's go name these horses. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. So whereas like I think I have a bit of ADHD. I most likely have a lot of ADHD. Self-diagnosed, right? Yep. And I'll sit there in the silence and I'll just feel the silence. I can talk for fucking hours. And like something random will pop up, or like something, I'll be looking at my phone and I'll be like, oh, do you remember? And he just look at me like, what the fuck? Like,
but still go along with you.
Yeah, he sits there and he's just like enthralled in me and just looks at me like,
what planet are you on?
Yeah, and it's just so funny because, you know, like he's a builder by trade as well. So we've got, you know, he's a farmer and a musterer, but he builds as well. So like when it's too wet, like at the moment, there's not much that can be done because you can't get through the creeks and stuff. And so he's building at the moment. Nice. And he talks to me about, he comes home, I'm just like, how was your day? And he's like, yeah, good. And I'm like,
what'd you do?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I dug a hole, love.
Right. And it's just like most of the time in building, it's the same thing. It's so repetitive over and over and over. And he tries to explain it to me. If he does something different, he's like, yeah, I did this and this and this. And I just look at him. I'm just like, yeah. Cool.
That's cool with the hammer thing.
Yeah, awesome. But I just love hearing about it. And I think that it's my like character, I suppose, to my personality to bring people out and get people talking. And I love just sitting there and just getting him to talk to me about why, like, and I go, why? But like, why does it do that?
Yeah.
Why do you do that? Or like, I'll go and I'll watch him do something with the horses, and because we've been raised in completely different worlds, like we're very similar. Like we grew up very, very similar, but different styles of riding. So he's very Western, whereas I'm very English. And he'll do something, and I sit there and I'm like, why are you doing that? And he looks at me, he's like, what do you mean? What do I do? I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Like, tell me why you're doing it.
We do it this way for this reason.
Yeah. And I think that he thinks that I'm having a go at him. Like, why the fuck are you doing it? I'm like, no, I'm actually just curious. Like, explain to me why you're doing that.
Because you're like, I love you and I just want to know everything.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. I'm obsessed with him. He's fucking great. And, like, he's one of the funniest guys I've ever fucking met in my life. Like, he has me in stitches constantly.
I love the little snippets you share that show you two.
Yeah.
Because you don't see that on Farmer Wants a Wife or any of the highlights. You see the very, almost like, not scripted, because it's not scripted, but almost stand there, okay, have that conversation now.
It's
but
the cut scenes.
We see with you is so authentic and natural. Like the dog coming inside and you're like, fuck. No, and he's like a little kid. I got my pup's coming inside. Here she is.
Honestly, and he just is so funny, and you know, I could talk about him all day. Honestly, I love him. I love him to bits, and he just is so different to. I suppose he's older than a lot of the people that I've been with. So you know, I think that he has that emotional maturity. Yeah. But at the same time, he, you know, we have had our little tiffs here and there, but nothing like we get angry at each other and then we're like away from each other for 5 minutes, and because we're so obsessed with each other, we're just like, oh, fuck it, like it's no point. Like
you just gravitate back towards.
Exactly.
And like, oh, who's going to give in first?
Yeah. And I think we both have that, I suppose, maturity to, like, we both apologise to each other. Whether it's our fault or not, like, we'll come back and be like, I'm sorry. And he'll be like, I'm sorry too. And
That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just this huge, like, it's just this amazing, and I think that's why I'm so in love with him, you know?
Especially
like,
coming from relationships that have had that potential for toxic communication,
Yes.
and you both go, sorry, and it's like, oh, that felt good. And
Yeah.
then you just, off you go, and it dissolves away.
Yeah.
But there's a part in you that's like, oh, that was a bit too easy.
It
And you're sort of like
is.
waiting.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, that's a trigger that's not coming back. We're okay.
Yeah. And, you know, and I will go back to therapy again,
Yep.
you know, because I think that there's so much to, you know, go through over the last, you know, 6 months as well.
God, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things when we first got together. And because we were in each other's pockets for so long, like we met each other, then we were at events together, then we were living together for like in the house with, you know, there was other girls there, but we were like around each other.
Yeah.
You know, we then traveled like 16 hours to Townsville, 16 hours back. It was a lot of time together.
Yeah, because you're isolated from your friends and family, so
Exactly.
that becomes your everything.
Yeah, and I think that when we got back in January before the reunion,
Yep.
we sort of hit a little bit of a rough patch because we were like, fuck, like we're just living out of each other's pockets. But how do we navigate this? So we were sort of like nagging at each other, and like we were getting like short-tempered with each other. And like my dad came to visit us, and Todd went absolutely spastic. He must have been nervous or something, but he went absolutely spastic. And I was like sitting there and I was like, what are you doing?
Who is
like,
this?
who are you? And my dad was so funny because he's like, he just is one of the loosest units. Like, he's just so funny. Again, he's super like supportive, and he'll accept anyone. He came out and he's like, is he always like this? I'm like, I have no idea what's going on with him this week. Like, he's crazy. He was so angry and like just not himself. And I think it was a bit of nerves that maybe, you know, because he knew that my old man and I were so close, he was maybe worried that
want to make a good impression.
Exactly. Yeah. And he just did complete, like, my dad loves him.
Yeah.
Like, loves him. Like, he's his son already. So, but like, he just did not make a good impression at all. And I was sitting there and I'm just like, what the actual fuck is going on? And like, there was one night there where like Todd and my dad sat up till 4 a.m. just trying to solve the problems of the world.
Oh, I love that.
And like, I remember getting up the next day because I went to sleep because I was like, ugh, I can't do this. So I went to sleep. I woke up the next day and they're both just passed out. And like, is anyone going to do anything today? I was like, okay, well, so I went out and did the animals and I like came back inside. Everyone's still passed out. And it was like, I think it was like they all came to at like 5 p.m.
Oh my God.
And they're like, right, where are we going? What are we doing? I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I'm
going to bed.
Yeah, you two besties can fucking go and do something.
That.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just, I think it's in every new relationship, it's really hard. I think we had a really weird start to a relationship because
on national television, that's a little bit unorthodox,
when would that
but yeah.
ever happen? And I was just like, fuck, this is just like completely out of, like, you just wouldn't do it any other time. And I've said to him, I said, the only time I'm ever going to share you with like 5 other women or 4 other women is if we have 5 daughters. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's the only time. That's it. And he's just like, yeah, I'm sweet with that. Like, that's so good. So
I'm so happy for you
yeah,
guys.
thank you.
What can we expect from you in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I don't know. I have the biggest, like, my ovaries are just exploding at the moment. And I'm just like, I want to be a mum. I've wanted to be a mum. You know, I had a really good conversation with Todd's mum actually on camera. Where I kind of broke down a little bit. It didn't get shown because it got cut so much. But I kind of broke down because I was like, you know, I got married in the hopes that I would have kids by the time I'm 30, you know. So as I'm edging closer to 30, like, it's not a big deal. There's no timeline on kids or anything, but I was just like, I'd love to have a kid before 30.
Yeah.
Mainly because I feel a lot of pressure, especially now that my parents are getting older. I'd love for them to have the opportunity to have grandkids or have at least one grandkid while they're still able, and, you know, I'm not calling them old or anything, but like, fucking my old
still
man's
be super
70.
hands-on.
Exactly. And like, I think he has a lot of regrets about not having kids earlier.
Yeah.
Which is, we all have regrets, but it happens. I think I feel a lot of pressure to sort of like make that happen for them as well.
Yeah.
My mum couldn't. Like, my mum's super. She's just like, have kids, don't have kids. And it came to the point before I went on the show, I actually said to my dad, I was like, when I turn 30, I'm gonna get IVF.
Either way, I'm having a kid.
Yeah, I'm going to have a kid, yeah. And because I'd given up, I was just like, if this doesn't work out, I don't care. Like, I've got a great business. I've got my friends and family here. I'll just have an IVF.
Yeah.
And I'll have a baby that way. And that sounds blasé because it's not that fucking easy. And, I have the biggest sympathy for people that have to go through IVF.
Yep.
But I was at the point where I was like, I'll get a fucking sperm donor. Like, I don't want to deal with men,
Yeah.
So I was really upset when I was talking, like, it just kind of hit me, and I was just like, I would love to have a family, and especially for my parents, because their partners have grandkids.
Yeah.
And they just, I don't know what my bloody brother's doing. He's I don't even know if he's got a girlfriend or anything. So, yeah, he's
an accountant. He knows how much they cost.
Exactly,
he's like, nah,
right?
I'm not doing this.
Yeah, so I think that, I feel a lot of pressure for me in myself to do that. And for so long, I think, especially with the breakdown with my parents' relationship, I was like, I don't want kids, I don't want it. Like, I don't want my kids to have to go through something like this. But again, you look back and it's just like that separation. They grew together. They built a life together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it broke down, but they are thriving. Honestly, they both got great partners.
Yeah.
My mum's partner is amazing. He's a wonderful man. My dad's partner, she's wonderful. She's such a kind lady as well. So I've really got a great family, which is really, really lucky. And, like I said, I'm very lucky because a lot of people have it a lot worse off than what I do.
Yeah.
And I always say to my dad, I said, look, we haven't had a hard life. We haven't had to beg for anything. We haven't had to, do any of that. But fuck, man, it'd be so much better if it was easier. Like, we've just gone through so much shit, life and money problems and
had to fight
bullying
for
and, all of that stuff. And, I think that, for me, I'd love to have kids in the next, 12 months.
Yeah.
I think that, but again, in that, there's just so much that needs to happen. I want to go overseas for my 30th next year.
Yeah.
I want to be married before I have kids as well. So that's got to be put into the whole, timeline as well. So, I mean, I said 12 to 18 months for, marriage and, the kids are 9 months in the oven as well. So, it could be like a 2-year plan for us. But, apart from that, just, working in real estate as well, which is really, really fantastic. I love it. I think I'm just destined to be in it. It was my first real job. And then after that, sort of transition into the legal industry. And then, ended up back in real estate here in Townsville. I was there when I met my best friend Chelsea. So we worked together at Daring and Young Property as well. So, and we've been best mates ever since. And then now back in real estate. And I just I could talk to everyone all day. And I think that the biggest part of real estate is just communication and networking. And I got sick with influenza A before I came here a week and a half ago. And I had to stay home from work. And I'm like, I can't talk on the phone because, and I'm like, I need to talk to people face to face because I'm just feeling so isolated at home. So Zoom meetings are the way to go these days. So I got that. And then, working slowly on a new activewear line. Well, I have so many ideas. Again, it's just my ADHD brain because I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's a really cool idea. So my idea is to sort of source stuff and then sell it for an affordable price because activewear is expensive as fuck.
It is.
And although you need to sort of work in profit margin and all that sort of thing, I want it to be affordable for people. So working on that, and then also looking into we've got our brand Melbourne.
Yes.
Because I was sitting there, I'm like, what can I name this brand? And I'm just I'm looking at Todd and I'm like, I'm not going to be a lamb forever. I will take his last name if we get married. So I was like, if we'll start off with Melbourne Activewear because that's that's really easy to source suppliers and that sort of thing. But down the track, I really want to look into like Melbourne equestrian as well, where it's just like, because obviously we have that connection with the horse industry. So, you know, like joddies, horse riding shirts, like that sort of thing. So I'd love to. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And you've named a couple of pieces after some pretty special humans
I
in your
have,
life.
yeah. And, you know, and it's just, I was sitting there the other day and, you know, I want it to be a sort of an all-inclusive brand.
Yeah.
And because I have friends of all shapes and sizes. I've got extra smalls, I've got extra larges, I've got everyone in between.
Yeah.
So I want it to be really inclusive and really, I want it to be that brand that, you know, people open the drawer and you've got that one brand that you're like, oh, this makes me feel like really good, like it doesn't squeeze me too tight, they're just comfy, you always chuck them on and you always know those ones because they're always the most worn ones.
Yes.
I want to be one of those, you know. So I'm sort of in the inception part of the business. You know, I'm lucky that I've got the business savvy and experience that, you know, I know how to start a business. It is a whole new industry. The clothing industry is insane, but the activewear industry is growing exponentially. Yeah. So, you know, and then we can branch out and we can go like Melbourne Rural or something, and then you can just like put a big brand over it and call it Melbourne Apparel and just have like the different sections of like activewear, equestrian, like farmwear.
Sky's
Like,
the limit.
yeah. So there's just so much potential there, and I think that I'm really grateful for my mindset, I guess, because like I have a lot of friends that have businesses like yourself, you know, like, and I see how you have built this business, and, you know, I've got friends in Mildura that have built businesses from the ground up, and I see not only in business but in people as well. I see the potential that they have, and I have still got a lot of stuff that I want to accomplish in life, but bugger me if I can help someone to become like, and I cringe at I cringe at this, but it's like 1% better. Honestly,
I know, but it's
is.
true.
It is.
It's true.
If one conversation with me can push someone, you know, I've worked with trainers. I have signed off on multiple PT students, you know, while I was PTing, which was really, really cool for me because I got to see how much that I'd learned and taken on and how much influence that I could help them. And, you know, and they are now really successful in the industry. And I would love to, I don't know, I don't know how to do it or how to get into it. It'll come to me one day, but I'd love to go to small rural towns and be a speaker. And just, even like this podcast will help to obviously get this all out as well. But, you know, hearing my experience and like, even if it might be two different sides of the equation, like if someone can listen to me and be like, right, I'm going to be motivated to move away from home, or I'm going to be motivated to, fuck it, let's start this business. What's the worst that can happen? I'll lose some money, and then you start from the ground up, you build it again. Or like the other side of it, where there could be a girl or a woman in an abusive relationship thinking that they're stuck there and not knowing what the fuck to do. And like there's so many people that have been there, and it's fucking scary as hell. Having to walk away from that, and like if someone can listen or see me or, you know, get something from me that pushes them to that, to know that they're strong enough to get the fuck out. That's I froth that, honestly. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so passionate about helping people. And, you know, I have so many ideas in my head, and, you know, like this whole thing about the, you know, domestic violence situation against women in Australia at the moment. I'm trying to figure out a way around, and if anyone listening to this podcast has an idea, please DM. All of my dresses from the show that I wore, I want to sell them and donate the proceeds to a charity. And I just don't know how to, I've been thinking about it for ages because I've got like 11 dresses, and I'm like, if I can like sell them for like $100 each, it's $1,100 that can go to a charity that could like put a woman up for, you know, a
Yeah.
fortnight or do something like that. Like,
Yeah, if anyone's got an experience with like a Depop store
Yes!
or something like
Tell
that,
me.
get in touch, because I think that is such a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And my God, I can see you being a key speaker.
I'm sorry. And I'm such a fan of Lucinda off Maths.
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, I was so sad because I got tickets to go
That's
see
right, you
her
won
last
them.
weekend.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And it was the weekend that I wasn't coming. I'm like, guys, you could have literally just pushed it another weekend.
Another week, and I could have done everything all in
done
one
it.
night.
Oh, I'm such a fan of her. I think she's wonderful, and I think that she is such a positive light in such a really, and like, this world is fucking cruel. Like, and that's why I have learned it over the, you know, and so not a nice thing to learn.
Yep.
But the world is not a nice place to us. And I think you have to make your own opportunities, and you have to just sort of grab life by the balls and make it a positive place.
Yep.
And there, you know, I mean, look at the comment section on Farmer Wants a Wife groups. Like, there's so many negative Nancys in there that are just have such a shitty life that they just want to try and bring you down. Yeah, like, there's so many people that just cannot see a way out and they can't see the positive side of things.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think that if you can cling on to those people that just give you that hope,
Yep.
you know, and that is so positive. Like, everything is a lesson, you know, and there might be, I'm not perfect. I cry, I, you know, have shitty days, but, you know, you wake up the next day and it's like, it's life. Like,
That's it.
you know, and my dad gave me the best piece of advice ever. He said to me, and it was when I came forward to him that I had been assaulted, and he said, Days, if it's not your health, if it's anything to do with money, like life, anything, if it's not your health, it can be fixed.
Yeah.
You know, and like, health is wealth, and, you know, by, you know, putting yourself in a situation where, you know, you're putting your health at risk, that's where you start to go downhill.
Yeah.
But he said anything else can be fixed. And I think about that every single day, where, like, if something goes wrong, I think about it all the time, and I'm just like, is it my health? And I'm like, no, if it's monetary, if it's something to do with work, if it's something to do with, you know, a car or a dog or like anything, you know, it can be fixed.
That's it.
You know, so
the world's not going to end.
Money will always come back.
Yeah.
And, you know, it might be, I've been in so many situations where I have had to just leave a job, like, straight up.
Yep.
And I haven't got anything planned.
Yep.
But I'm never without a job for like more than 2 weeks. And
you
it's
hustle.
exactly. And I think that, you know, some people, they'll see like leaving one job as, oh no, it's the end of the world, you know, my life's over. And there's been a couple of situations where I'm just like, what am I going to do with my life now? You know,
Yeah.
like,
What's next?
yeah. So like, when I left the real estate, when it was my first job, and you know, I'd left after 7 or 8 months, and I was like, oh my God, like, it's the end of the world. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then like a week later, this opportunity to work in a law firm popped up. And then from that law firm, I got poached for a conveyancing agency. And then from that conveyancing agency, I went to real estate here, which then led me to another real estate here. And it's just thing by thing. And then, you know, eventually I ended up, like, I started doing PT while I was still working in real estate. And I ended up spending more time working on my PT clients than I was working in real estate. And then it was at that time where I was like, it's not fair on my boss. It's not fair on me. I need to, and I was shit scared, because when you go into PT, that's all you've got to rely on. You have to really push, and you have to get your books full, and that's a scary thing. Like, when I left, I was just like, it was just after COVID.
Yeah, okay.
So it
Even
was
scarier time then.
Yeah. So I just left, and I was just like, you know what? Let's just do it. I just got to do it. And it was the best couple of years of my life doing it. And then eventually I was like, ugh, it's hard. Like, you know, I have to get up at like 4 a.m. every day, and I was doing split shifts, and I was like, I need to get more balance.
Yeah.
So then I went
Yep.
back to full time.
Yeah.
So, and then again, like it took me to management positions, and then that management position took me to another management position, and then that took me to gym ownership.
That's
and
it.
it's just stepping stones,
Shoot your shot.
Yeah, and like I think a lot of people will look at like my stepping away from Air Locker as a failure, and I know that I have had multiple conversations with people where they're just like, oh well, she doesn't own a gym anymore, and it's like, yeah,
That's
but
triggering them though, not you.
exactly. But I'm just like, I sit there in Narrabri, and I'm just like, well, there's already enough gyms here, but like, what else would work here, And it's just, it's just,
Who knows?
Yeah, the opportunities are endless, and yeah, I think at this point in my life, I think I said to my friend, I joked around last night with her, but I just want to be like a heifer now and just have babies. Like
You're in that next stage of your life.
Yeah.
You found peace finally.
Yes.
It's calm.
Yeah.
It's healthy. You're happy. You're
Yeah.
thriving. You're back to your roots.
Yes. Which is great.
Like, I don't think I've seen you look this light.
Yeah. It's great. Hey.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on and being so vulnerable and sharing your story, because
You're so fine.
You're right. It will help someone.
I hope so, yeah. And like I always say this on my social media as well, my DMs are always open, guys. So if you need to talk, if you need to just vent to someone, if you need... Look, I don't know how much, help I can provide, but, if you need some support in your next step, like my DMs are always open.
And if anything we discussed on this podcast has triggered you in any way, I will leave some contact details in the show notes as well for you, so that you've got somewhere to reach out if you don't have someone you feel safe to go to. But I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait to watch what happens over the
I know.
the next
so
few years
excited.
and whatnot, because in the small time I've known you, you just grab opportunities and run with it.
Gosh.
But you just, even being in your presence, you just want to be better and better.
Yeah.
So for someone like you that says that's what you want to do, you already are doing that as you move through the world.
Yeah.
But now it's just on a bigger platform, and I can't wait for everyone to get to know the real you and just what you've got to offer.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again. Like, I always appreciate the platforms that, people give me to chat. I've had a couple of podcasts now, and, it's just, I'm really appreciative that you actually want to sort of dive into the personal side of things. And yeah, again, sorry, Mum and Dad, if I've got any of those facts wrong.
I just felt Farmer Wants a Wife was such a beautiful experience for you. You got your man and all that.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't have had him, what you went through was horrific.
Yeah.
During, after, it's still going on. You still had people blowing you up because you went out last night because you had the flu. Like, how the fuck can she go out with the flu? It's called Suck It Up, Princess.
100%, yeah.
It's not hard. But, yeah, you're on to that next chapter of your life, and I'd love to check in with you in a year's time and just be like, what's up, Daisy? Where are we?
Well, maybe like in November when Todd comes back, we can do like a trio podcast. Yeah,
that'd be amazing,
because that's in another 6 months time, basically.
November. Fuck.
5 months.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know.
I know,
but I better let you get back to it.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you again for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good. And
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our latest episode. Your support means the world. So wherever you're listening, if you don't mind jumping on, follow, like, share it with someone that might get something out of it. I would so appreciate it. If there's something in this episode that has piqued your interest and you want to get in touch, please slide into the DMs. Until next episode, guys, stay safe, be an extra kind human, and see you soon.